Hi, I'm Jeff. I often tell people I take after my grandmother. She studied accounting at Temple University, and around that time, she met my grandfather. He was a truck driver. Summers, he took her out on the road, showed her the country, and taught her how to drive a rig. So you had this mix college during the year and the road in the summer. And that's how I grew up, somewhere in between those worlds. She went to work for RCA, and I remember her taking my brother and me to One Cherry Hill. That's where she worked in the 1970s. It was just across the bridge from Philadelphia, and I didn't really understand what I was looking at back then, but I remember the room, rows of desks, adding machines humming all day, paper everywhere, tape rolls piling up, men in shirt sleeves, armbands, green eye shades. Every desk had a machine, every number had a place, every mistake had to be found. No shortcuts, no undo button, just repetition and precision. That was the system, and she knew how to work it. When I think about it now, the entire accounting floor got replaced by a single PC. Now, that doesn't mean that technology is bad. I'm a huge fan of it. But I did most of my driving in what I think was the golden age of trucking. Back in the 80s and the 90s, after the interstate system was mostly built out, and after all the oil shocks of the 70s, things had settled into a rhythm, and there was like a certain pride to it. Not everybody liked trucks, not everybody liked drivers. They might not like anything about it, but they liked what it did because it kept everything moving, kept the shelves stocked, kept the lights on, and kept the whole machine turning. And for a lot of people, it felt like a patriotic pursuit. You were part of something bigger, even if you were out there by yourself. That's why you see the flags, that's why you see the bald eagles, that's why you see Lady Liberty, the Liberty Bell. That's why you see the symbols, because trucking became tied to this idea that freight movement was part of keeping the country functioning. And that's why a lot of guys go from the US military into trucking. Same mindset, different mission. So, like a lot of people, I joined the United States Navy out of high school. They sent me to Naval Air Station Pensacola. That's where the Blue Angels were based. I had a rating that doesn't even exist anymore. Dispersing clerk, PK. I processed payroll. From there, I went to Yokosuka, Japan. And after that, I get into trucking. I started driving cab overs for JB Hunt. Just been hired, usually not trained. That's what they used to say. And after I finished at that puppy mill, I went to work for an Atlas agent. And there was a culture to it. Every kind of country music you could ever want to hear on the radio. CB's humming all night, chrome everywhere, paper maps folded up on the jump seat, truckers looking out for each other. Even today, a lot of drivers still carry paper maps. And personally, I wouldn't drive the 5 boroughs without a Hagstrom book map. Because GPS doesn't always work in those concrete canyons. Sometimes the old tools still work better. The CB was a big part of that too. You'd hear all about accidents, traffic backups, debris in the road, bears sitting at the bottom of a hill, real-time information drivers could actually use out there. There used to be places that felt like they belonged to drivers, driver lounges, driver sections at truck stops, places where people on the road could decompress a little. And then years later, during COVID, I ended up climbing back into a truck again. And that was a strange experience because suddenly I was seeing the industry from 2 different periods at once. The old world was still there. You still had drivers using CB radios, still had old school rolled trucking knowledge being passed around, still had guys warning each other about weather, traffic closures, enforcement. But now all the new technology had arrived. Smartphones, GPS, electric logbooks, ELDs, fuel apps, real-time weather, real-time traffic. Honestly, some of it is really incredible. Drivers suddenly had access to technology that was only major trucking companies used to have access to. Things that once required dispatch offices, routing departments, accounting departments now fit inside a mobile phone. After I stepped away from driving again, I started contracting with my home state regarding compliance issues. And that's where something really started standing out to me. The technology exists. The tools are already out there, but most owner operators and most small fleet operators, they're still only using a fraction of what's available. A lot of drivers have powerful systems sitting right in front of them, but they're buried in paperwork. Receipts stuffed in cup holders, fuel tickets piled into folders, information scattered everywhere. And that's when I started to realize this wasn't really a technology problem anymore. It's a visibility problem. And there are definitely parts of old school trucking that probably should disappear. And this is where I start thinking about paperwork, receipts, fuel tickets, invoices, stacks of paper floating around the cab, or shoebox accounting, or glove box accounting. That's one place where technology really should win, because now you can scan documents instantly, capture receipts in real time, build audit-ready books while you're still on the road, organize records automatically, track expenses properly, stay ahead of compliance instead of scrambling during tax season. When you do that, you start gaining visibility, a real picture of where your money is going, what's costing you money, what's making you money. Because most guys think work is incredibly hard. They know how hard it is to move freight. But the financial side, the operational side, organizational, that's where people start struggling. In the meantime, most of the capacity is already sitting right there in the cab. QuickBooks, truck management software, receipt capture apps, fuel analytics, mileage tracking, KPI dashboards. The tools already exist. What I'm curious about is how many drivers are actually using them, because the driver now has access to technology that only major fleets used to have. Entire departments used to handle this stuff. The accounting department and the routing department and the fuel department, the analytics. Now it's single owner operator can access most of it from their smartphones. Most of it's still only using a fraction of what's available, because once these systems start talking to each other, things start becoming visible. Cost per mile, idle time, fuel efficiency, deadhead percentage, which loads are actually profitable and which ones just keep you moving. And that's where this starts getting really interesting, because for the first time, even small operators have access to the kind of operational visibility that used to belong only to major fleets. And in a lot of ways, this should be the greatest time ever to be on the road. The technology is incredible. GPS, ELDs, smartphones, real-time weather, real-time traffic, real-time routing, real-time fuel data. A lot of this stuff would have seemed unbelievable back then. The future finally showed up. And honestly, ELDs themselves are amazing technology. The frustration drivers usually have isn't the technology, it's feeling like the people writing the rules don't fully understand the road. Because the road changes constantly. Weather changes, traffic changes, parking changes, fatigue changes. A driver knows the difference between I need sleep and I'm 20 minutes from home. A computer clock doesn't. But the trick is knowing which technology actually helps you and which technology is getting in the way. Once you start figuring that out, everything starts to change. And that's what this channel is about, figuring out what technology works, old school, new school, and how to use technology without letting it use you. Because a lot of drivers already have the tools. What they don't have is visibility. and a real picture of where their money is going. Once you can actually see that, you start to notice things that were always there, but costing you money the whole time. And if any of that sounds familiar, message me. I'm curious what you're seeing out there, what technology you're using, QuickBooks, TruckLogix, receipt apps, or are you still running everything out of a folder or off the passenger seat? Because I think we're only beginning to understand what this technology is really capable of.